Oh, hello there. This is my darling child. After spending hundreds of hours building Howl's moving castle last year, I told myself that I would never build the flying version, but I changed my mind, because as the human mayonnaise bottle says,
one thing you can always count on is that hearts change.
So welcome back to my episode 7 in my Ghibli crafting series. Let's go. If you've seen my videos, you know I always like to start with a thorough plan, sketching out every nuance with perfect precision. Every detail must be recreated from memory by my machine-like hand. It would be all too easy just to print out the line art and pretend that I made it, but I'm above such temptations. It's important to thoroughly toil over every detail, as if Miyazaki himself was sitting over my shoulder, quietly judging. Closely followed by less quiet judging when he tells me what I've created is an insult to life itself in front of the entire crew. I'm sorry it's not more perfect. Let's just stick to gluing trash together instead.
I love it when you talk like that.
Quick recap. Last time I made this, but it started out its life like this. A 1-gallon jug of kimchi. But the flying version of the castle is a bit smaller in comparison, roughly the size of this delicious jar of mayo. This jar is about 90% good, but we don't need this part! And as with all garbage plastic, it needs a good sanding before we can start gluing anything to it. This looks like enough rough. For the legs, I'm inserting hip sockets using this hefty cardboard tube from an aluminum foil roll. In hindsight, I didn't really need to add a hollow tube running through the entire length of the jar, but it does add some nice core strength. Plus, it does give me the option to change my mind later and run an axle through it for Howl's moving van. Oh, let me tell you about where I got this bottle. It's a very boring story, actually. It was caked in mud and wedged in a fence somewhere, but after restoring it, this litter lives a second life.
I'm doing my part!
First, we'll use this part right here, but to remove it, we'll need to make the worst sound imaginable. Awful. This section, folded over on itself, will make up the lips of the castle, which is what covers up the castle's teeth. But since you won't actually see the teeth, we'll just glue on the lonely lips. To support this mouth that's just protruding into space, I'm using a piece of this plastic apple container from my trash archives. Now thankfully, this gratuitous piece of plastic isn't sold anymore where I live, but I've still hoarded a hefty collection of these plastic domes. One of these flimsy hemispheres will be used to bulk out the castle's round head shape, but this baby's fontanelle is still quite soft. I should have thought about adding some structure on the inside. I do have this stuff.
Great stuff.
It's fine. This is expanding polyurethane foam in a can, and it looks delicious. One of the things it tells you not to do on the can is to fill closed voids larger than an inch, which is exactly what this is, so we'll see what happens. Oh, sick. This kind of reminds me of those parasitic worms that turn snails into ratatouilles. These break right off and are ready to go straight into the bowl for playing cheese puff roulette. To fill out this chin, we'll use a few more of these decadent curves on this sport drink bottle. By overlapping them, they make some pretty convincing neck rolls. In my opinion, the castle has neck rolls. We'll strengthen up the upper lip and then do a quick sound check. A bit more to bulk out the brow, then it's time to start building up the central tower. For that, we'll use a yogurt container. The plastic on these containers is soft as butter, or yogurt, so the blade just slides right through. After cutting the edge into an undulating curve with a pair of scissors, it sits pretty on the body. And voila, 5 minutes into the video and it still looks like garbage. Trust the process. Next, we'll give the castle some eye sockets using a pair of these, but harvesting just the cute little dimples on the top. Upon these dimples, I'm adding a couple cap sealing rings from a box of broth. After the eyes, we need a nose, which you can't see in the movie unless you could turn it around for a front view. This extra Gundam shield I have already has a couple built-in nostrils, and there we go, more face. One of the MVPs on this project were the curved ridges on various plastic jars and bottles. They were super useful for layering, hiding seams, and breaking up large swaths of plain plastic to become overlapping metal plates. Some of this garbage plastic is pretty flexible, which is kinda nice when you're trying to squeeze it into lip crevices. The face is almost done, but the eyes need something extra, so meanwhile in the bathroom, I harvested the inner seal on a couple pump bottles. The rims are riveted with rhinestones, and that completes the eye sockets. Stay tuned for the eye antennae to come later. Next, we're going back to the hip sockets where we need to fill these holes. I have a bunch of these plastic bobbins that have a weird sort of string inside. I'll save that string for later. But these plastic clamshells are perfect as leg mounts because of the little peg in the center of each one. We'll make legs for these pegs later, but for now, we need to blend them a bit better into the body. Oh, perfect! Another plastic bottle with the exact dimensions I need. If you want a tip into how I keep pulling out the exact piece each time, just stop throwing things away and instead create a somewhat organized landfill under your desk. Next, we'll start creating that luxurious balcony that rests on the back of the castle about here. For the base structure, I'm using yet another yogurt container. Then capping it off with a piece of cardboard for the Markle-Heen ruckus zone. As I was spending time rounding out the booty with more plastic plating, I realized I needed to cut out a hole here so that I could make room for the tail propellers, and what better for a spinning blade than a Beyblade. Out of all these flashy boys, Simple Gray Guy is my favorite. Plug that hole up right there. To build up the rest of the propeller base, I'm sacrificing this pawn. And for the propeller itself, a propeller. I don't need it to spin freely, but it would be pretty neat if it could technically rotate, so I'm running a lollipop stick through the center. As you might know, Miyazaki loves his flying machines, so this big boy is double-strapped with a second propeller. This one comes sacrificed from a helicopter in a previous build. We'll never achieve lift with these pathetic plastic blades though, so I'm augmenting them with coffee stirring sticks, scratched up and trimmed into a more aesthetically pleasing rustic design. And there we go. Now we just need to do a quick spin check. And we'll attach it later. But wait, don't go. We need to keep working on that back side. It still has a full-on yogurt container vibe, so we'll mask that up with more plastic container curves. And on the underside, I'm using another gunpla shield as the castle's chastity belt right between its back legs. This detail might not be canon, but what is canon is this giant gear wedged in the castle's sternum. We'll cut a little coin slot here and then make a deposit for good luck. Great, our savings are secure. Let's dress up that slot with a few more gunpla pieces, then wedge this gear in nice and tight. In the first Howl video, I used a bunch of these saxophones. These were melted down to create hazardous fumes, as well as the castle's very human ears. There are no ears this time, but I do have one sac segment left to become the castle's oblique muscles under the wings. These are camera parts that used to take cool pics, but it's been broken for years, so now they'll become various details around the castle's hip joints, as well as a few gear charms and pieces from the inside of, I forgot. I also hid some of those metal gear charms behind tiny plastic windows to imply there's something functioning below the surface. And speaking of hiding metal charms, the horse centipede will be angry if I don't hide at least a couple of their infinite shoes somewhere on the castle. This gear joint caps off the castle's lips. These are sheets of EVA craft foam. It's flexible and a bit stretchy, so it's perfect for hiding seams or cutting into a beautiful fake nail set. These fingernails will become the decorative scales or feather type things that protect the hips where each of the chicken legs will be sticking out from. Now, I hear you full throat screaming, the castle's fingernails need to be much more sparkly. Rhinestones. Rhinestone pen. Plastic plate. As per my usual method, I'm using rhinestones as metal rivet details. Some people have asked how to edit tedious repeated detail sections like you see here. The trick is to make a little noise when you add each rivet while filming, which adds a spike in the audio waveform. It looks like this. And the final result is this expert sound design.
Beautiful.
I love the rivet bedazzling stage because it helps blending all the random garbage into one. Oh, can't forget that face. I forgot to count how many rivets I used, but if anyone is brave enough to attempt to tally them up, I'll reply to you with a wow. And feel free to use this shot to help with your counting. Oh. Let's take a break from the body for a sec and instead gaze over here into these beautiful eye stalks. This eye came from the first castle I made, and it actually has a twin. It's a broken Star Wars toy, so we'll hide any whiff of IP recognizability with some craft foam and a little glass eye bead. And for the other eye, I have this salt grinder I don't need because I've stopped grinding and only lick my salt whole. Alright, these beautiful long eyes are done, but before we continue, I think it's time for a quick progress report. So far, the face, body, and tail are complete. So let's move up top level for a little brick action. A little smear of glue, and then the fun tedium begins. It can be pretty draining to lay each brick individually, but just delude yourself into thinking you actually crave the tedium.
Tedium.
Next, I am building a battlement to lay atop this brick-covered yogurt container. The base is cardboard, but we'll surround it in a wreath of XPS foam. After some stone detailing, it's ready for a wraparound. Time to dress up this plain cardboard. Air dry clay. Using this texture roller with a nice cobblestone pattern, I'm rolling out a pattern that has a cobblestone texture.
Wow.
And while this pancake is still wet and pliable, we can transplant this skin graft over to the battlement. And then it's time to mix up my favorite texture paste so we can hone this foam into a faux stone. Sure, you could just spread this over everything and leave it as is, brushstrokes as far as the eye can see, but only real ones know that after smearing the paste, you gotta, say it with me now, pat that cream. After a good stippling, this goop's texture has a fine lump to it. Now let's crown this tower, then move on up to the round turret that sits on the top. The base of the turret is this plastic rice bowl, but we're aiming for a hemisphere, so I'm capping it with another apple dome filled with expandable foam for structure. More domes, but they're way too smooth and shiny. Don't forget to sand the inside too. After layering mini dome segments into a plastic patchwork, it needs to be capped off with a couple cannons. After the wartime events of Howl's moving castle, I figured Howl was entering his pacifist era, so it's kind of funny to me that the castle is still gunned up at the end of the film. Maybe these are just non-functional cannons that are just there for aesthetics? Or they could be eyes. On the back of the turret is a balcony, possibly. I have the perfect curved plastic, which I used to make the tongue of the full meal deal Howl's moving castle. I used up all the tongue curves, but I saved this piece just in case. Sadly, this piece won't get to go to Tongue Town, but it does make a nice balcony. Atop this balcony, I'm using coffee stirring sticks to make a deck, but as always, we need to practice safe decks and add a safety railing. I found a bunch of whatever these are at a thrift store, and they make perfect 2-scale safety railing or ladders. Next to this extremely safety-focused balcony is another little balcony and door combo. After getting fully zooted on this little bottle of vanilla extract, I'm using the bottom portion for its opulent doorway curves. It'll look better when it's all detailed up though. There we go. For the balcony, another one of these things can be burrowed on itself to create a small extension off the front of the door. After I'm done sticking cotton swabs in unspeakable locations, I like to keep the little plastic tube for various things. For example, here's a cute little ladder that ascends to the castle's blowhole. All it needs now is a final pass of bedazzling. With the gun show done, let's move on to these vestigial exhaust pipes that seem to only function as the castle's clothes line. This is a regulation fire hose squirt gun and it has a twin as seen in the last Howl video. So let's get redundant and do it twice. The sticker is a real stinker, but I don't mind battle damage, so let's just scrape it off. And use a real blade and not your dull horseshoe knife, just for another horseshoe reference. Next, we'll need the help of our resident fire demon, Calcifer. I want to soften up this plastic just a bit to give the pipe a slight wonk. Perfect. Thanks for all your help, Calcifer.
Don't you dare, don't you dare, don't!
Next up on this lump, this concave section of a water filter, and oh, I found this beauty on the ground the other day, and now I just can't stop making designs that pop. I'll pop this right here, then let's pop off this knob. This is all we'll need for the base, now let's turn our attention to the tip of the tube. The rook moves horizontally across the board, then splits itself in two to become an exhaust spout. A few final pieces to finish off the top, but most importantly, a couple mounting poles to attach our clothesline to later. All done? Nope, we need double the pipes for double the emissions. Let's rapid fire the build of the second pipe. Partially for audience retention, but mostly because I don't know what most of these parts are and I'm scared. All I know is I stared at my junk for a long time, constantly looking for dream tubes with the perfect matching girth I needed. And finally, the magic spell, Flibberty Rivet. We're almost finished with capping off the top of the castle. Now it's time for toothpaste. But not for that dirty mouth, this is for the crow's nest. Because 9 out of 10 dentists agree that this cap kinda looks like the crow's nest. To help cut out these windows, I'll first drill out a couple cavities, except 9 out of 10 dentists also recommend keeping your fingers away from drill bits. I cleaned up the windows by shaving off a few fingernail slivers, then painted the inside black. That way, I could cap off the roof now and not worry about ruining my life by trying to paint the inside through the tiny windows. For the floor, here's a plastic donut with a very messy hole. So we'll hide that hole with a soap pump tube. Now we need something with some rigid structure. Like this I-beam, or maybe it's a wide H-beam. I beamed up the whole base of the crow's nest, then realized there's no doors to get into it. Nice. Then another one of these mystery items to build another balcony. This will be the floor, but for the metal grating, I have this dollar store sieve, which is nice and flexible to fit anywhere. Sure, this material looks nice, but I later realized it should have been wood planks to be movie accurate, which means I wasn't focusing on the right details when I watched the scene. Uh-oh, this is a little bit loose. A horseshoe should tighten up that gap though. Let's add more height using more soap pump tubes. Another horseshoe to make this design choice look a bit more intentional, then a greasy corn dog stick wedged up the core to give the rest of this hollow tube a bit more strength. It's unknown how this is mounted to the castle, so I'm going to use a ping pong ball, but not the whole thing, just a ping pong wedge. All this really needs is a coating of bricks. The crow's nest will be attached to this round balcony later, so until then, take it away. Let's mark this complete and move on to the wings. In the movie, these wings are seen here, and that's the extent of the reference material. I'm pretty lukewarm on how they look, only because I prefer the peak design of the fish fins on the V1 castle. This bottle has a nice changing radii, and we love a good changing radii here. This is meaningless. And our slap bracelet is done. 1 wing, 2 wings. I actually did buy this curvaceous bottle specifically for the wings. The variable radius meant the wings can be straight at the base, but curve a little more toward the wingtips. I normally don't buy things just to get cool garbage, but it was on sale. Discount. Now let's jab some gems on these wing things. Next, I need to fashion some sort of grasping rod for the wings. Using a plastic tube, I'm cutting out a couple wedges to make a 2-fingered Lego hand. These slip over the gaps I conveniently left. And it was at this point where I suddenly ran out of plastic rods to finish these wings up. But 1 pizza and tiny furniture delivery later, I was back in business. This little hamster table was exactly what I needed, but I wish I hadn't forsaken Calcifer earlier. Calcifer, you came back.
I kind of missed you guys.
Aw, I kinda missed you too. Bye. Connecting to these 2 little bent pipes will be a prime piece to help us take flight. These tiny satellites, when split in half, become a sort of hinge that's a perfect fit for these tubes. So perfect, in fact, that I almost considered turning the model into a little hand crank automata with flapping wings. Kinda like this flappy Charizard made by Sonago, but I have neither the talent, nor the patience, nor the talent to make this. This is all you'll get because I ran out of flaps to give. Bye-bye, little butterfly. But we can't serve our wings without a serving of drumsticks. These dangle legs are non-weight bearing, so we can use these delicate and opulent conical beads. Let's stack these cuties up. But first we need some armature wire as the bones for these cones. Oh, my knee! This little bit of wire out of the ankle will become the big toe. Then 2 more pieces of wire are needed for the lesser toes. Let's polish off this pedicure with some rhinestone toenails, and this beautiful creature is ready to scuttle. Let's take a quick inventory. Aside from the wreath of buildings around the center, this is enough to make up the bones of the castle. Before we start painting, I want to make sure this castle will be flight ready. I left a hole in the castle's belly, which will be a mounting point for skewering it on a stand. It's a little front heavy. I'm going to smuggle some of this scrap metal into the castle's tailpipe. It might not be perfectly balanced, but it takes it from bad to better. Now let's head outside for the halftime prime. I don't like huffing paint, so I'm just gonna, wait, hold up. Now that's a shirt. I'm priming everything in black, followed by a light dusting of gray from the top to create a zenithal highlight. This is a great method for adding contrast in the details, except I'm going to smother it all in a thick layer of acrylic paint later. But first we have some gaps to fill, like right here. We'll fill that hole and more with a crusty rust paste made from baking soda and one of my favorite color paints, terracotta. I'm gooping all gaps until it looks like he ate a lot of terracotta. I got this vibrating nipple recently. It's like, oh, what are those things called? Oh, the footsie wootsie massage chairs. Those things you sit in when your blood needs to get mixed up in your feet because your foot sediment is all settled. Basically, this does that, except for pots of paint. The name of the game for everything metallic on the castle is dry brushing. I'm using a medley of silver, gold, bronze, brass, and copper paints to create a confused cornucopia of whatever scrap metal Howl could get his hands on when he wizarded this whole thing together. I don't know where Howl acquired this choice junk, but I assume wizards still have to obey conservation of mass. Thus, he didn't materialize this garbage out of nowhere. What a dream, huh? But with all the destruction he's taking part in the movie's B-plot, I have to imagine he's looting this scrap metal from the airships he's destroying, which according to international law is a war crime. And the last metallic task is to freshen up the 2,218 rivets with silver. Uh-oh, sorry for spoiling it if you were counting them, you took too long. After metal comes bricks. First, an overbrushing with a mix of 1 part gray to 1 part brown. We don't want the interior cobblestone to feel left out, so paint that too, even though it's going to be fully hidden under the turret. Then for the bricks, just basic boring brick colors, but once again with a hodgepodge of hues, assuming these bricks were apparated from a variety of rubble piles. In addition to brown, these bricks are red-brown and gray-brown. Let's add a white mortar line between the bricks, and oh boy, that's way too thick, but hopefully not too noticeable after washes and some greenery to hide the mistakes. The last touch for the stone is a khaki dry brush, just enough to tickle the texture and enhance those edges. And now the rest of the castle, also known as the little houses on the castle, little houses made of insulation foam, little houses on the castle, and they all look pretty much the same. The first floor of the backyard is a piece of foam topped off with a cardboard deck. I've started with this building because it's the only one shown in detail in the film. I love having such a luxurious amount of cute elements to replicate, but it's also a double-edged sword because if I miss anything, and I will, you're obligated to point it out in the comments as if I excluded it just to hurt you. Which I did. Like a cruel game of spot the differences. But one thing I didn't omit is this stairway that secretly connects to the sub-level. This is where it'll slot in, but for now it'll be too burdensome to paint around. The main structure is this cute cottage on the back, but it needs a roof. Luckily, I have a case of shingles. These are just standard issue shingles cut from old cereal boxes, but for Calcifer's gazebo. How about a new shingles variant? I've been loving these pattern-edged scissors for creating shingles with a more cottagecore aesthetic. Then below the gazebo, we need some stone tiles, which are made from a wafer-thin slab of air-dry clay. And finally, hanging off the back away from everything is the open bottom latrine. We'll paint it soon, but for now, a quick fire-scorched look with black paint and Mod Podge. Moving on over to the neighboring block of pink insulation foam, this one looks to be a continuation of the main house, so the design aesthetic is exactly the same. But the two buildings are connected by a little wooden boiler room. Or maybe it's another latrine. And here's a more elegant latrine on the front. As we wrap around the castle, we begin to approach territory not previously seen. Since the movie only confirms the castle to have a left side, I can make up whatever I want for the right. The last visible building is tinted blue, which I'm interpreting as metal plating. I'm using some plastic packaging for the walls and a seaweed snack pack as the corrugated roof. And with that, we head over to the mysterious, uncharted right side of the castle. We'll start plainly with some pink foam. Then a piece of leftover deck from the Casita video. I have no clear vision for what this building is meant to be, but then I added some plumbing on the underside and its true purpose revealed itself. Truly, I only added the pipes to better blend this block to the body of the castle, but now there's certainly a water closet on the other end. And that's everything that would legally constitute an attached dwelling unit, but there are a few unpermitted stragglers trying to hide behind the wings here. The first is this balcony. You can't see it in the movie, but we need a tiny door so this viewpoint is actually accessible. Then using a piece of this custom circus fabric that I painted for the first video, I made a little awning. It's way too tall right now, but I'll trim it to Howl and Sophie size later. And lastly, this little pink block, which will be this wood block. And we can't forget the blowhole in the side of the building so Howl can toot this trumpet. And that's all the exterior details. Oh, sweet Ghibli, thank you for not making the outside as detailed as the inside. But if you want to see someone crush the overwhelming minutia of interior detail, go check out Miss Minilife's video on Howl's bedroom and other Ghibli interiors. They're a treat. Now let's start slapping some paint all over these little boxes. Starting with, French vanilla. This absolutely scrummy cream is reserved exclusively for the plaster frosting of the castle's main house. Then the cherry glaze on top is several layers of red, built up from a rich crimson and topped off with a coral dry brush. I'm brushing upward just to catch those delicious frosted tips. Then some chocolate frosting for the window panes and garnished with a windowsill biscuit and a toasty chimney. I won't bore you with the details of the rest of the painting. It involves subpar brushwork with the occasional sponge dabbing for a sprinkling of variation. For the most part, I stuck to cheap acrylics until I broke out the mineral spirits to make a burnt umber broth in my requisite half of a limoncello can.
Very good. Push. Push. There you are.
I'm using this oil wash to stain all of the untainted balsa wood and coffee stirring sticks. Usually I might have primed the whole model first, but that would have ruined the capillary action of the wood grain. Instead, we enjoy the sponge-like properties of this unsullied wood. But it's not just for wood.
Oh yeah, drip it all over me. More. More.
More.
Oil washes have quickly become my favorite quick and dirty weathering technique, but it's also a great way to blend my mediocre painting into something passable. Plus, it's hard to mess up. It dries slowly so you can dab off the extra with a paper towel, and even if you let it dry, you can reactivate it again with some clean mineral spirits. But it's important to make sure you seal everything in some sort of protective top coat before oil washes. I use a matte spray varnish first, otherwise the paint would likely melt off of the model. And here's one more example of why lazy paint jobs love oil washes. I did nothing to this mustard house besides slapping it with paint, drenching it in a brown wash, then jabbing it with a sponge a few times. We're dangerously close to the assembly section of the video, but first, let's head to the backyard for the 7 things I almost forgot. First up, the yard needs a yard. For the stone path that stretches across the lawn, I'm gluing down a row of these tiny pebbles. Then for the excess glue, some static grass using the smallest size static grass I could find. These are 2mm blades, which is quite small, but the gaps on the sieve are almost twice the size, closer to 4mm. It should be oh. In case it's not clear, it didn't work. Sprinkles it is. Number 2, the table! Off with the head of this peg. I made a few peg legs with plastic rods, and then for the chair seats, I hole punched a place for 3 guests, then legged up these discs with a few extra fragments of some extra plastic grating. Number 3, I spy a telescope made out of beads, where Howl can peep out of his rear window to keep an eye on his neighbors. Number 4 is the laundry, where the pants flag is flying high off the castle's exhaust pipe. I wrapped some thread around the pole, then tailored a few garments out of a tissue. I like my towels extra crisp though, so I starched them up with some watered down Mod Podge. 5 is our favorite fire demon. I made his stove home out of some old foam, but for Calcifer's hot bod, I'm using a glob of hot glue, gently stroked and stoked into a flame. We're gonna hide him deep in a corner, so don't worry about the level of wonk on his face.
Ow, I should have stretched.
6 is this mystery bucket, which is actually just a regular bucket with a gravity-defying chain. And 7, that's this beautiful family, which I actually did forget to make.
On purpose.
Now before we assemble this bouquet of plastic, I'd like to share all of these submissions from last month's Patreon Art Challenge. The theme this time was voted on by patrons, but we ended up with a complete tie between 2 themes very relevant to Howl's Moving Castle. Theme 1 was The Sky's the Limit. This could be interpreted as anything related to flight, or even tangentially veering off in wild directions away from flight. The sky didn't necessarily have to be the limit. And Theme 2 was a classic, open to anything Studio Ghibli or nature related. But for hidden bonus points, there was a third secret theme, which was to merge both themes into one. In total, there were 36 entries from all over Earth, made by artists of many ages, spanning a huge variety of art and crafting mediums, but the one thing they have in common is that they're all perfect. Thank you, patrons, for sending in all of your lovely art. And now, please enjoy me being quiet as we launch into the final assembly. And that's it. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stick around for the beauty shots and a whole bunch of Patreon shoutouts, but I gotta get out of here, back to the crafting dimension. Bye, see you later. Libby May, Shiki Chen, Scowlface, Jordy Crafts, Noel Westenberg, the Hamburglar, Backward Marathon, Monster Painter, Megan Longley, Brenna W, Tony DeWitt, Brett Lofgreen, Asmund Buh, Dosa Kim, Noah Statlander, Patrick Myers, Xeno Sector, Moon Strange Weather, Mechhead Studio, Emma Silber, Vera Zahanyi, Gino the Flamingo, Blasian, Caucasian, Will Crosby, Osteya, Kaputitia, Ben Williamson, Sir Williamson, McNamara, Starry Brook, Maria, Alice Beck, Miss Witch, Happy Item Room, RJ, Walter, Rex, and Sophie Rule. Chris, Cass and Gina, Clown, Milk, Gabby, and Mommy, Spaced Out, Veggies, Jasness, Ryan Olshavsky, Kirsty Cromar, Dead Flip, Corey's Corner, Emily Quinn, Tom Berlinger, Joss Lava, Jared Konatz, Lisa, Kimberly, Hawk, Dynamite, Han, Hannah Hillam, Arson, Ekman, H2O, Razman, ZD Pumpkins, Daniel Berry, Squishy, Sunshine, Daisy, Shiny, Purple Pants, Scott Will, and his S tier trash.
Goodbye.